Emily never planned to open the door that evening, and that was what made everything move so fast once she did, because the night had already been heavy with memories. It's the kind that settle in the chest and refuse to leave. And she was standing, alone in her father's house, the same house where his laughter once filled every corner. Now quiet, except for the ticking clock and the hum of the heater, and she told herself she was fine, that she had learned how to live with silence when the phone rang and broke the stillness like a sudden wave. And for a moment she stared at it, unsure, knowing that calls usually meant sympathy or awkward check-ins. But something pushed her to answer, and the voice on the other end was familiar, steady and kind, belonging to one of her dad's old friends, Mark, who said they were nearby, that they had been talking about her father, that they wondered if they could stop by for a few minutes. And Emily felt her chest tighten because it had been months since anyone connected to her dad had come by, and the idea scared her more than she wanted to admit, because it meant facing stories, faces, and parts of her life she had packed away to survive. Yet before she could talk herself out of it, she said yes, and when the knock came minutes later, it felt louder than it should have, echoing through the house like a challenge. And as she walked to the door, memories rushed in fast, her dad opening it with a smile, teasing his friends, offering coffee even when it was late, and when she opened it, there they were, older now, carrying tired eyes and gentle smiles, holding the cold night air on their coats, and they looked at her with care, not pity, which caught her off guard. And she stepped aside to let them in, feeling like she had crossed an invisible line, because once they entered, the house changed, filled with low voices, familiar jokes, and a warmth she had forgotten was possible. And as they sat in the living room, their presence made the walls feel closer, safer, and they spoke quickly, not dragging things out, sharing short memories about her father, about work, about life moving on whether anyone was ready or not, and Emily listened, answering when needed, surprised by how easily the words came, how she didn't have to pretend. And then she noticed one man standing near the bookshelf, quiet, hands in his pockets, looking at a photo of her and her dad from years ago. And this was Daniel, someone she remembered only vaguely from childhood. But now he seemed different, calm in a way that didn't demand attention. And when he turned and met her eyes, he didn't rush to speak, didn't ask questions. He just nodded, as if he understood the weight of the moment, and that small gesture stayed with her because it felt honest. And the evening moved fast after that, with laughter mixed with pauses, stories that ended before becoming too heavy, and the realization that time had passed without her noticing. And when Mark finally checked the clock and said they should go, Emily felt a sudden pull of disappointment she wasn't ready for, because she hadn't felt this connected in a long time. And as they stood by the door, Daniel thanked her quietly for letting them come, saying it mattered more than she knew. And when the door closed behind them, the silence returned, but it was softer now, filled with echoes instead of emptiness. And Emily leaned against the door, breathing out slowly, shocked by how much one small choice had shifted something inside her, because she realized the door she opened wasn't just the front door. It was the one she had closed after her father died. And even though nothing dramatic had happened, no big moment, no sudden change, she felt it clearly, that this night was the start of something she didn't yet understand. And that scared her, but it also made her feel alive again. And as she turned off the lights and walked down the hall, she knew she wouldn't forget this evening, because some doors once open never fully close again. The weeks after that, night moved faster than Emily expected, as if opening the door had set life back into motion. And suddenly the house was no longer just a place of quiet memories, but a space where voices returned, because her dad's friends began stopping by again, sometimes together, sometimes alone, never staying too long, never forcing anything. And Emily found herself adjusting without effort, learning how to welcome people without feeling overwhelmed. And each visit felt lighter than the last, filled with short conversations, shared coffee, and moments that didn't need explanation. Yet what surprised her most was how natural it felt to see Daniel again. Because he became a steady presence, not loud or dramatic, just calm, respectful, and attentive, always arriving with a small smile and leaving without making the space feel crowded. And Emily noticed details she hadn't before. The way he listened more than he spoke. The way he spoke about her father with warmth but not sadness, as if honoring him through quiet respect rather than pain. And their conversations moved quickly from simple topics to deeper thoughts without feeling heavy, touching on work, change, and how life rarely follows plans. And Emily found herself speaking honestly without realizing it, sharing things she hadn't said out loud since her father passed. And Daniel never rushed to fix anything, never offered advice she didn't ask. For he just understood. And that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. And then there was Ryan, Daniel's nephew, who joined him one evening without warning, bringing an energy that was different but just as grounding, closer to Emily's age, thoughtful but easygoing, carrying his own quiet struggles that showed in his eyes. And with Ryan, conversation moved fast, filled with small jokes, shared tastes in music, and stories about missed chances and uncertain futures. And Emily felt herself smiling more than she had in months, surprised by how quickly comfort could return when she wasn't guarding every emotion. And the evenings blended into each other, never repeating the same moments, always moving forward. With Emily learning how to live again in small ways, cooking meals instead of skipping them, opening windows, letting sunlight touch the rooms her father once filled. And as Daniel and Ryan became familiar faces, Emily noticed a change inside herself. Not romantic at first, but something close to hope. A feeling that she was allowed to feel connected without betraying her past. And one evening, after everyone had left, she sat alone on the couch and realized she no longer felt guilty for enjoying company. Because these people weren't replacing her father, they were carrying pieces of him forward through kindness and presence. And when Daniel returned a few days later, just to drop off a book her father once loved, Emily felt something shift, a quiet warmth that surprised her. Because it wasn't about attraction or longing, it was about recognition, about being seen not as someone broken by loss, but as someone still becoming. And as she watched Daniel leave, she understood that letting people back into her life had created something unexpected. A space where connection could exist without pressure, where emotions could move freely without fear. And that realization stayed with her, growing quietly, because the true surprise wasn't that her dad's friends had returned. It was that Emily herself had returned to piece by piece without forcing it, without even noticing. And as she turned off the lights that night, the house felt alive again, not because of the past, but because of the present. And for the first time in a long while, Emily didn't wonder how to survive tomorrow. She wondered what might happen next. As the days kept moving, Emily noticed how quickly her life was changing without making noise about it. 'Cause nothing dramatic happened, yet everything felt different. And the routine she once used to survive was slowly replaced by moments that felt real, like shared meals, short walks, and conversations that didn't feel planned. And Ryan became part of that change in a quiet but steady way, not forcing his presence, not rushing anything, just showing up when invited and sometimes when not. And each time he did, Emily felt more at ease, because with him there was no pressure to be strong or cheerful. And they talked fast, jumping from topic to topic, about work struggles, childhood dreams, music that reminded them of better times, and regrets they rarely admitted to others. And Emily realized she was opening up without fear, saying things she once kept hidden, like how lonely nights still felt, how grief didn't fade but softened. And Ryan listened closely, not with sympathy but understanding, because he carried his own losses. And that shared understanding built something honest between them. And one evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sky darken, Emily felt a strange moment of clarity. Because she wasn't thinking about her father's absence. She was thinking about the present, about how calm she felt sitting there. And that realization hit her harder than sadness ever did, because it meant she was healing, even if she wasn't ready to admit it. And later that night, after Ryan left, Emily stayed awake, replaying the evening in her mind, noticing how her heart felt lighter, not racing, not heavy, just steady. And she understood then that the shock wasn't about letting her dad's friends into her home. It was about letting herself feel again. Because she had spent so long protecting her heart that she forgot it was still alive, still capable of warmth and connection, and the thought scared her, because feeling again meant risking pain. But it also meant choosing life over numbness. And as the weeks went on, this awareness grew stronger, shaping the way Emily moved through her days, making her notice small joys she once ignored, like sunlight through the window, laughter during dinner, or the comfort of silence shared with someone who understood. And Daniel remained present too, always supportive, always respectful, watching quietly as Emily found her balance again, never stepping into a role that wasn't his, but offering stability that grounded everything else. And Emily appreciated that more than words could express, because it made her feel safe enough to grow. And then one evening, after a long conversation with Ryan that ended in gentle laughter, Emily stood alone in her kitchen and felt tears roll down her face without warning. Not from sadness, but from release, because she finally understood that healing didn't mean forgetting her father or moving on too fast. It meant carrying his memory forward while allowing new connections to exist. And that understanding settled deep in her heart, changing the way she saw herself and her future. And for the first time since her loss, Emily didn't feel broken or incomplete. She felt human again, capable of hope, capable of care, capable of letting life surprise her. And as she wiped her tears and looked around the house, she knew something important had shifted inside her. Because the quiet no longer felt empty, it felt peaceful, and the door she once opened for others had fully opened within herself, and there was no going back to who she was before. Only moving forward with honesty, courage, and a heart that was finally ready to feel. Why life did not suddenly turn perfect after everything Emily realized, but it moved forward with a quiet strength she hadn't known before. And each day carried a sense of balance that made her feel grounded, because she stopped waiting for something dramatic to define her happiness and instead allowed small moments to matter, like morning coffee, short messages from Ryan, or peaceful evenings that no longer felt empty. And her connection with Ryan grew naturally, without promises or rushed emotions, built on honesty, shared laughter, and respect. And they spent time together in simple ways, taking walks, talking about future plans without pressure, and learning each other's habits. And Emily felt safe in that slow rhythm, 'cause it didn't demand anything she wasn't ready to give. And Daniel remained part of her life too, offering guidance and warmth without expectation, always honoring her father's memory while supporting Emily's growth. And she realized how important that balance was, because it showed her that love could exist in many forms without conflict. And as weeks turned into months, Emily found herself stepping into life again, reconnecting with friends, exploring interests she had abandoned, and learning how to trust her emotions instead of hiding from them. And one evening, while sitting on the porch with Ryan under a calm sky, Emily felt a deep sense of peace. Not excitement or fear, just clarity. Because she understood that what shocked her wasn't a single moment or choice. It was the realization that healing didn't come from closing doors, but from opening them carefully. And she smiled as she shared that thought with Ryan, who listened quietly before telling her that some people only find themselves after loss, and that they deserved happiness just as much as anyone else. And those words stayed with her because they felt true. And when Ryan reached for her hand gently, not as a promise but as reassurance, Emily didn't pull away because she trusted herself now. And as time continued, Emily stopped measuring her life by what she lost and started seeing it through what she gained: strength, understanding, and The courage to let people matter, and the house that once felt frozen in grief became a place of growth, filled with warmth, memories, and new beginnings. And when Emily looked back on the night she first opened the door, she no longer felt fear or confusion, only gratitude, because that moment taught her that love doesn't disappear, it changes form. And sometimes the most shocking thing isn't what happens next, but who you become when you finally allow yourself to live again.